Hey guys, we're here with Kevin, who just finished 9th place with Fluffal at Niagara Regionals. So close, but congrats. How are you liking the deck for the format, and why are you playing it?
I'm playing it because it's what I know and it's what I got. I've got a lot of experience playing it between MBT's online tournaments, which I topped a couple and I bubbled a few, and the previous regional where I went 6-3 and bubbled again. It's not the best deck, but it's a deck I have a lot of experience and fun piloting.
Awesome, well let's get right to the list.
Sure thing. So we got 3 Fluffal Penguin. This is the best card in the deck. It is a soft once per turn summon from hand that if you use it as fusion material, it just draws 2 and discards 2. So that means that you can resummon this over and over again, and you also get you basically get to reshape your hand the moment you fuse with it. Next 3 is 3 Fluffal Dog. On normal or special, it searches. I need more copies of Toy Vendor. This gets me to Bear, which is more copies of Toy Vendor. 3 Bear, pitch to set Vendor. It's extremely non-committal. It's like the most non-committal way to get to Vendor because there's no way to ash it. Setting from deck is kind of a tricky thing for any player to interact with. And it's got a secondary effect, but it doesn't come up much. I contributed to add a poly back. It matters once or twice, but didn't come up this tournament. It's just more copies of Vendor, and Vendor's the best card in the deck. Speaking of which, Fluffal Dolphin is a custom card that was made by an insane person. But it's also terrible. It's this weird balance of broken and, bad, where at one point, it sets Vendor from your graveyard to the field and then dumps any Fluffal or an Edge of Sabers, which is insane, but it also means it's dead if you don't have a Vendor in your graveyard. We're gonna go Fluffal Wings. This is the silly +3 thing where you banish it and a Fluffal from grave to draw a card, and then you can choose to destroy the Toy Vendor on your field to draw an additional card, which searches the vet with the Vendor because that's not a once per turn effect. But again, you only ever need one of it because it doesn't do anything else. And when you want to set it up, you have the tool to set it up. We have Fluffal Sheep. This card is an extender that you can special if you control a Fluffal. Again, it's a one of because I've got so many Vendor searches and so many ways to search it. It's also can bounce any Fluffal back to hand, summon it again, which means you can be like special dog into the zone cross sheet points to, while it also points to a fusion monster, summon Penguin back, bounce the dog, summon back, summon an Edge Imp, link some stuff off. Penguin got turned back on again, so you can summon the dog that you just bounced back again. So this is like 3 or 4 material by itself when you use it to mess around with your cross sheep. And it's also a level 2, which will come up a little later. And then the final Fluffal monster is Octopus, which is a grind game card that allows me to return banished monsters when I use it as fusion material. It also allows me to target a monster and add it back to my hand. A Fluffal or Frightful monster, Fluffal or Edge monster, and return it back to my hand, which is really strong because it just sort of means I can grind forever, and because it's a water, I can add it back off Toad, which means I can add anything in my graveyard back with Toad, essentially. Then we have 3 Edge Imp Chain. I'm gonna get into a problem with this card specifically that I have that is a little strange, but it's busted. Sent from hand to field to grave, add a Frightful card. It lets you access Patchwork, and Patchwork lets you access it. It's extremely powerful. I don't really have much to say about it until we get to Patchwork. 2 Edge Imp Scythe. This is one of the most interesting cards Konami's ever designed. It's a hand trap fusion that only works on the opponent's turn. So you reveal it in a Fluffal and fuse, and then in the graveyard it is graveyard protection for the Frightful fusion monsters. That means that you can essentially use this to blank normals or completely shut down certain things that you need to remove before your opponent uses it as a material. I play 2 in main and 1 inside, so that when I'm going second, I'm more likely to see it, and when I'm going first, I'm slightly less likely to see it. Sabers is important because it's the only Edge Imp that can actually be accessed by Vendor and Dog and Dolphin. it allows you to set up the top card of your deck for the vendor stack so you can guarantee what you're hitting. And then the best Fluffal monster of all time, Eldritch the Golden Lord. Eldritch interacts with your toy vendor in a way that is really fascinating. So going first, it's just a free thing that you can pitch for the vendor and then send the vendor to summon it. So it's just a free extender that allows you to sort of convert bear or hard-drawn vendors into copies of Fluffal Dolphin that are live because the vendor is guaranteed to be in the graveyard. And going second, it allows you to take all the hard once per turn spells you have or copies of vendors that you've drawn and turn it into removal. And say, for example, you pitch vendor with Eldritch, you're sending something, and then vendor is searching bear, which sets to another vendor, and then the Eldritch sends that vendor to summon itself as 35 and can't be destroyed by card effects. And since it also can't be destroyed by your card effects, it means it can sponge the Scrap Dragon Pop effect of the Cruel Whale, which means that you get a lot of utility out of it. And it plus Cruel Whale, when Cruel Whale's boosted itself and Eldritch has boosted itself, is 35 and 39. So it's really easy to just kill your opponent. Next is Herald of Orange Light. These are all fairies. There's 13 fairies, 15 counting Orange Light. It's just a good card. Merly, I'm using Sprint to send Merly so that I can return my whale to the extra deck and then get a Dragostapelli out of it. So it lets me play more cards in my extra deck. The Sprint and the Dragostapelli are 2 additional interruptions because there's generally a rank 4 on my field. Then Foolish Burial Goods, best card in the deck. It sends vendor, which means it automatically makes Dolphin live. Star of the show, toy vendor. Soft once per turn, discard, summon, discard, draw a card if it's Fluffal, summon it. If not, I don't usually care about the top decks. Like sometimes it matters, and sometimes it's sacky as hell. But the real meat of it is the free discard, and then the fact that it searches when sent to grave. Patchwork. Doesn't really need explanation, Brandon goes over, but I do want to highlight a problem with the deck, which is that Chain and Patchwork and Scythe are sort of in this, they're only interacting with each other. You can't really get access to these with the rest of the Fluffal package, so it's kind of this gap in the deck's consistency, which I try to fill with Foolish, where sometimes, you know, Foolish I can dump Wings, I can dump Eldritch, I can also dump Chain and then revive the Chain with Sheep, which means it's an additional way to get a really, really jank version of Chain that can get me access to Patchwork, which can get me access to Edge of Scythe. Royal Penguin's Gardens. It's a Tenki that searches the best monster in my deck, and it also has an effect discard by revealing the penguin and changing its level of its hand, which means you can like open Garden plus Chain and then reveal the penguin that you just search off Chain and pitch Chain and then get Patchwork. 2 poly, doesn't really need more explanation, it's poly, you need it to resolve Patchwork. Fright for Fusion, it's Miracle Fusion. Fright for Repair is this deck's extension. I think this card is sort of the secret bet sauce between what makes a good Fluffal and a bad Fluffal player. Because you can send this from deck to grave with the whale, and it's free extension from your hand and while it's in the graveyard. But sometimes you open Patchwork and Penguin and you want to go whale, search this with the Chain, draw 2, discard 1, and then repair with the thing that the whale set up from your extra deck. You can return it to summon back the penguin so that you can play completely without normal summoning. And that way you can have less fear of imperm and also have a huge ceiling, and it's much harder to interact with. And then we got Called By and Triple Book of Moon. This deck's got a weakness to imperm when it doesn't have the ability to fuse, so I play Book of Moon as my non-engine. And Called By, I'm just scared to death of Droll and Shifter, so I gotta play Called By. 2 Cruel Whale. This is actually 3 Cruel Whale thanks to the Dragostapelli and Sprint. When it's summoned, it can pop a card on both players' fields non-targeting, and because you've got your hand trap, you can do that on your opponent's turn 1 or during their turn when you've set it up. And then it also has the additional effect to dump from extra deck or deck to graveyard to boost the fusion monster. Tiger is the only other Fright for Fusion that I'm maining, or that I'm playing. It can destroy cards up to the amount of fusion material used, which means it's a big bomb, but it's also the only thing that... This can't destroy Vendor if there's not something on the opponent's side of the field, but sometimes I need to destroy Vendor by fusing, so Tiger is the way for me to do that. Dragostapelia with the Sprint Merly setup, and then Guardian Chimera is a huge bomb. Bahamut Shark, 2 water, level 4 waters is really easy. I play under Nib like 80% of my games. Toad, something to mention because it adds back a water. I mentioned the octopus thing earlier, but it also means that I can have 0 Fluffals in hand and still have an Edge Imp Scythe live, because the Toad will add back an octopus or the penguin when it goes, and then all of a sudden the hand interruption is available to me again to just dump the whale on and draw a bunch of cards off the penguin. Tornado, Baguska, this deck makes rank 4s really easily, and then Zeus, it's Zeus. Cross Sheep, this card was made for this deck. It's just really stupid. It lets me loop Penguin over and over again, and that's all it really needs to do. Just be careful if you're reviving Octo with this. This needs to be the first thing in the chain link, because Octo is a win effect. Masquerena, Unicorn, Underworld Goddess, and then Sprint for the Merly play.
So, and to the side deck?
Yeah, this deck doesn't have much space for siding, so a lot of this is super generic. The Edge Imp Scythe, again, I mentioned the 2 versus 3 thing. Pank, it's just good removal and hard to deal with. I didn't really side it much though. Ash for branded and for niche matchups, I just decided to side it against Flu. Radiant, I was scared to death of Arise Heart and also Borland, so I decided to just side a Kaiju. It should be Gamciel, because you can add that back from Toad, and also Toad contributed in hand to negate something, but I just didn't have the funds for the rebuy Gamciels. 3 Dark Ruler, it's a good card. Twin Twisters, and a Change of Heart, which did come up quite a bit.
Awesome. Well,
but yeah, siding's super generic because you can only side like 3 to 5 cards out in any given matchup because the engine space is so large.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the deck profile. Congrats again. Any last shoutouts?
Shout out to Hanko for both the profile he gave of my 6-3 run at the Toronto Regional last week. And
I believed in this guy.
Hooking me up with the deck box because of the time win. It was a
So
lot
nice
of
of
fun. Shout out to the Necrofusion Discord and Skyhawk, who we're keeping it down, and we're making sure that this deck gets a lot of love.
Awesome. Thank you.